Oh, this is Jim Fetzer, your host on Authentic News, right here on RBN Live, this 24th day of April 2025. I'm hoping this is not satire, because if it's legit, it's one of the biggest stories I've ever reported. The Gazette teller, it's over for Schwab. WF files seized, military confirms Gizmo evidence as massive leak exposes decades of theft, staffer abuse, global control experiments, and a blackmail ring run by Klaus Schwab himself. The curtain has fallen. The illusion is shattered. Klaus Schwab, the unelected tyrant who ran the World Economic Forum like a Luciferian command center for global domination, has been thrown to the wolves by the very elites he once protected. This is not just a resignation. This is a targeted purge. The Davos bloodline is fracturing under its own weight, and Schwab is the first to be publicly sacrificed. This isn't about ethics. This isn't about accountability. It's about exposure. And the globalists are scrambling to erase evidence before the masses put the full puzzle together. Make no mistake. Klaus Schwab has been under military surveillance for years. Trump's White House, Space Force, kill clearance insiders knew everything. Every cash withdrawal, every traffic staffer under the guise of internships, every encrypted file transferred to Davos, to private intelligence servers in Basel, Switzerland. Schwab's retirement is a cover-up to neutralize liability before the tribunals commence. Let us be very clear. This is not the end of the WF. It's the beginning of the mask unmasking of its true nature. I want to believe it. I want to think that's all legit. Meanwhile, we have what could be viewed as a complimentary. Mark Atwood, Days of Conspiracy. Listen to this.
About the fact that Reuters is talking about Klaus Schwab in a negative light with the whistleblowers starting to come out with information that is detrimental to his character, which is incredible. But what makes it more incredible is that it's Reuters. Now, Reuters is if you don't know, it's the news network that all the newspapers use as their source of information. And this is how mainstream media parrots news stories via news agencies like Reuters. Now, the roots of Reuters go back to pre-1815, the Napoleonic Wars. When I worked at the Daily Telegraph, everybody went to Reuters as soon as they walked into the office door, and that's where they got their information, and that's what they base their stories on. And if they write a story against the narrative, it gets edited to suit the narrative by the sub-editors before it gets printed in the papers. So the news network in pre-1815 was owned by the Rothschilds, and the Rothschilds used that news network to put out information about the fact that Napoleon had won the war. And obviously that wasn't true, the Battle of Trafalgar, because Nelson actually won it. But because they put that information out because they had a better spy network than the British government, what happened was that the stock market all plummeted overnight, and then the Rothschilds bought everything up. It's pretty much where they took over the UK. So the fact that Reuters is saying this about Klaus Schwab is extremely interesting, is it not? It's almost as if the good guys have taken it over. But I am an apocalyptic, so forgive me.
Fascinating, fascinating, fascinating. They seem to be highly complementary. Let's hope this is all true. Meanwhile, Zelensky rejects Trump peace plan, risking U.S. withdrawal from Ukraine negotiations. When a poker player clings to a losing hand, refusing to fold despite the odds, onlookers recognize a painful stubbornness that precedes inevitable defeat. On the global stage, Similar dynamics are unfolding as a deadly chess match between Russia and Ukraine approaches its fourth year. The conflict has cut hundreds of thousands of lives, displaced millions of Ukrainians, drained Western resources at unprecedented levels. Meanwhile, front lines have barely shifted in the past year despite billions in military aid. The Trump admin has been working diligently to broker peace, where Biden's team utterly failed for years. But Ukrainian President Zelensky has thrown cold water on peace efforts, flatly rejecting any deal that involves yielding territory to Russia, despite Ukraine's military incapacity to recapture the areas. From Breitbart, there's nothing to talk about. It is our land, the land of the Ukrainian people, Zelensky said Tuesday. Despite the Ukrainian military having failed to reclaim Crimea over the past decade, or indeed the four occupied provinces over the past 3 years. Well, he's a petulant child. He's immature. He's benefited massively. He's become a billionaire through the war. He doesn't want to give anything up. Meanwhile, antiwar.com. Report claimed Putin willing to halt Ukrainian invasion along current front lines. Financial Times reported Wednesday Russian President Putin was willing to halt the invasion of Ukraine across the current front lines to reach a peace deal with President Trump. If true, the position would mark a significant concession from Russia, which has maintained a peace deal must include the recognition of the four Ukrainian oblasts it has annexed as part of Russia, including territory that's not under Russian control. In response to a question about the report, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov warned against fakes, but didn't explicitly deny it. A lot of fakes being published now, including by respected publications. You should only listen to original sources. By the way, that's the first thing you learn in graduate school. Only go by original sources. One of the tells about Wikipedia does not allow original sources. That's so it can go to secondary sources that represent the position they prefer and cite the secondary sources, not allowing reference to the original that might refute it. Disgusting. Clearly meaning Wikipedia is a political op and it's under Zionist control. Meanwhile, Truth Seeker, Western narrative versus Russian reality. Who's actually falling behind? What Western media isn't telling us.
Russia running low on weapons and suffering under economic sanctions.
For over 2 years, Western media outlets have repeatedly sounded the alarm. Russia is running out of weapons, ammo, and manpower. Headlines warned of crumbling supply chains, depleted stockpiles, and troops forced to fight with outdated equipment. The narrative was compelling. Russia, bogged down in Ukraine, on the verge of collapse. But a closer look tells a different story. Behind the smoke and noise, Russia is not only sustaining its war effort, it's quietly ramping up weapons production and building one of the largest missile stockpiles in recent history. So, is Russia truly on the ropes, or has the West underestimated its long-term capabilities?
We know the answer to that. Yes, Russia is thriving and surviving. It's the West that's waning. Meanwhile, get this. Hollow halo. U.S. admits defeat in hypersonic missile program. One more indication of how bad things are. The U.S. Navy has killed its next-generation hypersonic missile, slamming the brakes on a once promising developmental program amid soaring costs, shaky performance, and China's growing arsenal. This month, Naval News reported the U.S. Navy has terminated its hypersonic air-launched offensive HALO missile initiative, originally part of the Offensive Anti-Surface Warfare Increment 2 program, citing insurmountable budgetary issues and underperformance. So Russians have hypersonic, the Iranians have hypersonic, the Chinese have hypersonic. Guess who does not? Meanwhile, Colonel McGregor, Defense Secretary Hegseth, Iran and Israel. What must happen at the Pentagon? This is with Daniel Davis.
What we need to do in the Department of Defense is not unleash new bombing campaigns anywhere in the world, not commit more naval power, not add more ground force to Eastern Europe or anywhere else. We need to look at the reality financially that demands we cut the national defense budget by 50%. And what are we talking about now? We had Hegseth that sent out a silly tweet, oh, we're going to have $1 trillion. Well, good luck with that, because where we're headed, I don't think that has any chance of happening. And people inside the Washington bubble are delusional. They don't seem to understand just how fragile our economy is. We've seen $8 trillion of wealth destroyed since President Trump took office. Again, what should have happened to begin with? He should have said, you know, we're going to have to retrench. We're going to have to shed these commitments overseas. We have to focus our attention here at home. These are the things that President Trump could have said that would have made him an heroic figure in the history of the country. It would have upset people in Washington, but he would have won enormous support and praise across the country. But he didn't do that. So where does this man Hegseth come from? This is a Fox News talking head who essentially endeared himself to the Trump regime and the current administration by announcing that he is a quote-unquote Christian Zionist. Go back, dig up the film, Gary can find it, and look at the discussion that was held in the conference room of the Secretary of Defense, right across, it's not immediately across, but almost across from the Secretary's office in the Pentagon, and ask him to play it. And it shows on one side of the long table, Hegseth and his quote-unquote team. And on the other side is Mr. Netanyahu and his team. And Hegseth opens the meeting by saying, you can see from the team that's around me that we're ready to do whatever Israel needs. We are here for you, and we are prepared to do whatever is required. We're on your team. Okay. Well, that was the critical requirement for anybody to join the administration, whether it's defense or state or anywhere else. That's what you're seeing right here. And you want to broadcast the discussion and what he says. What happened? Well, suddenly Hegseth brings in some other 30-somethings. I'm sure they're nice people. I don't know how much depth they've got, how much experience or understanding. We haven't seen much of that in the last two administrations. Maybe they were very, able people, but eventually they all sat around and told Hegseth, you know, this deal about Israel and war with Iran, that's scary. Yeah, no kidding. We don't know where it's going to go. We have no way to control it. Once we unleash it, how do we contain it? And I think Hegseth and his friends all got cold feet. And then somewhere along the line, somebody in the media found out that Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and potentially Vice President J.D. Vance, another, ardent Israel first guy, all of them said, this Iran war, that may not be a good idea. Whoa, that's not what you were hired to do. Hegseth was hired to say, yes, sir, we're ready to go. We're all loaded. Give us the word. That's what he was hired to do. And he's not doing it. So we've fired everybody around him that works for him, ostensibly, not because of this signal chat. I mean, there's no question that was an exercise of stupidity and imprudence, but because of the Israeli connection. So his head's on the chopping block. How much longer he will be there is anybody's guess. And I know that President Trump has done this before. He said these kinds of things about Steve Bannon before Steve Bannon, boom, was suddenly out of the White House almost overnight without explanation. And it's happened with other people. So I wouldn't put much stock in the public statements at this point.
Yeah, I remember Rex Tillerson was in that same boat, how he was supported until all of a sudden he wasn't. So yeah. We'll see with that. But, honestly, Doug, what's not going to help Hegseth avoid that fate is statements he made on Fox News this morning.
You remember when this all started, the first go around, because this is the second go around, right? They peddle old stuff, they kick it back up. I said repeatedly, no one's texting war plans. You know why I said that? Because I'm in the bowels of the Pentagon every single day. Just 10 minutes ago, I was looking at actual war plans of things that were ongoing or pending things to happen, because that's on a regular basis on classified systems. That's my job for the war fighters, for the President of the United States. I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning.
Oh, man. And Gary, if you could put that full screen up there, this is what was for media coordination, unclass and informal. F-18's launch strike package, trigger-based F-18 strike window starts now. More F-18s launched, strike drones on target, second strike starts, etc. Those is as blatant black and white classified information as you can possibly get. And yet he is continuing to claim that it's just minor stuff and no big deal at all.
On more than one occasion, President Trump has told people, whatever you do, don't hire anyone who is smarter than you. President Trump is being successful. And Exeth is clearly not very smart. And that may be part of the problem. The notion that this sort of thing would be treated in a cavalier fashion is frightening. I remember when Deputy Secretary of Defense Deutsch was removed because he brought a classified information on his laptop computer home to his residence.
Yeah, those were the old days when security meant something. Meanwhile, Syria detains top Palestinian Islamic Jihad leader after U.S. demands. This is bad, bad, bad. Syria's Hayat al-Sham HTS government has been unclear about what their position will be on the Palestinians. That's an important issue because there's a large Palestinian population in Syria. It's also important because the U.S. recently issued demands for Syria to ban all Palestinian groups from operating or fundraising in the country. HTS hasn't made any public statements, but they did recently meet with Fatah leader Mohammed Abbas in Damascus, a meeting Israel was trying to prevent. That hints toward engagement with a Palestinian Authority. But how in the heels of that, the HTS has also arrested two top Palestinian Islamic Jihad members. The two were identified as PIJ Syrian head Khaled Khaled and the group's organizing committee for Syria leader Abu Ali Yasser. No official Syrian statement about the arrests have been made. Some media suggested there hasn't even been an official charge yet, but they did it at the behest of the United States. Meanwhile, Israel continues to issue evacuation orders in Gaza. No new safe zones. Let me tell you what's going on here. Trump gave Israel all these bunker-busting bombs that we've been told they're for Iran. They aren't. They are for Gaza. There's a vast network of underground tunnels. The Israelis are telling everyone, all the Jews, to get out of Gaza. They are going to destroy Gaza and the underground tunnel network with these bunker busters. Stand by. It's going to happen before you know it.
Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people. Where do they all belong?
More stories. Robotic giants unleashed in Gaza. Israel's unmanned bulldozers changed the rules of war. They got these monster dozers They're going to make great use of them. Meanwhile, Gallant, Israeli army faked Gaza tunnel photo to justify military presence. He's just admitting how they lie all the time. They fabricate issues. We know that October 7th was the most prominent example. Meanwhile, TASS reports Houthis claim strikes on 2 U.S. aircraft carrier groups. If the Houthis say it, it's true. Missile forces and drone units launched 2 cruise missiles and 2 drones at the USS Harry S. Truman carrier and its associated ships in the northern part of the Red Sea. The movement said, Dubai, April 21st, TASS. Houthi rebels from the Yemen-based Ansar Allah movement have claimed responsibility for targeting the U.S. aircraft carrier groups led by the Harry S. Truman and the Carl Vinson. The movement spokesman said, missile forces and drones launch attacks, 2 cruise missiles and 2 drones at the Harry Truman and associated trips. A second operation targeted the Carl Vinson and its associated group in the Arabian Sea with 3 cruise missiles and 4 drones. You can be certain if the Houthis claim it, it happened. Meanwhile, Houthis shoot down yet another MQ-9 Reaper as U.S. airstrike continue to pound Yemen to no apparent success. Antiwar.com. Yemeni air defense have shot down yet another MQ-9 Reaper. The Houthis announced Tuesday. Our air defense shot down a hostile American MQ-9 Reaper while it was carrying out hostile missions, they reported. Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, get this for a disgusting story. Former Nestle CEO said water's not a human right, appointed as the World Economic Forum interim chairman. This guy, just from his appearance, looks unworldly. I mean, he looks gruesome. This guy, you know, you hear those rumors of aliens in human bodies. This guy looks at the World Economic Forum is seeking a new chairman after founder Klaus Schwab stepped down as head of board of trustees at the meeting on April 20th. In the meanwhile, vice chairman Peter Brabeck-Letran has been appointed as interim chair. He is bad news. Meanwhile, the Freemasonic Lodge hails Pope Francis' work as deeply resonant with their principles. The Grand Masters of the Lodge pointed out that freedom, equality, and fraternity, elevated as societal ideals in Francis' Fratelli Tutti, are the 3 core values of Freemasonry. The Grand Lodge of Italy has hailed Pope Francis' work as deeply resonant with the principles of Freemasonry in the wake of his death on Monday. We may get further comments from that during the calls. Meanwhile, Committee on X. U.S. wants to restructure China's economy. Did we read that right? Treasury Secretary Bessent. We want to help China shift away from exports. Their model is unsustainable and hurting the world. Translation, Washington tried to crush China with tariffs, failed. Now they want to redesign China's economy through dialogue, pressure, and partnership. Good luck with that. Also, Bessent, the trade war is unsustainable. Talks will happen below the level of Trump and Xi. Now let's be real. This isn't cooperation, it's coercion. A soft reboot of regime change dressed up as global stewardship. Imagine thinking you can micromanage a 1.48 billion person economy that just hit 5.3 GDP growth from a country with 34 trillion in debt and collapsing infrastructure. Nice try, Uncle Sam, but this ain't 1999 any longer. Here we have the SNET talking about it.
China in particular is in need of a rebalancing. Recent data shows the Chinese economy tilting even further away from consumption toward manufacturing. China's economic system, with growth driven by manufacturing exports, will continue to create even more serious imbalances with its trading partners if the status quo is allowed to continue. China's current economic model is built on exporting its way out of its economic troubles.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Comes the sun, here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
Well, we got a lot going on. Trump told Congress he was building up U.S. forces in the Mideast to protect Israel. He's being very candid that it's Israel first, not America. The White House Tuesday published a letter Trump sent to Congress on March 25th that he was ordering a buildup of U.S. military forces in the Middle East to protect Israel and U.S. assets in the region. In the letter to Speaker Johnson and Senate President Pro Tem Grassley, Trump said he was writing to inform them of the situation in Yemen and the broader Middle East region. First, I directed DOD to move additional forces equipped for combat into the Middle East to enhance the defensive capabilities available to United States forces and facilitate necessary military actions. He said the buildup included capabilities for air and missile defense of Israel and of locations hosting United States forces, as well as fighter support and reconnaissance aircraft to enable strikes on Houthi targets. So he's there fighting for Israel. It's all in violation of international law. But Trump doesn't give a damn. Meanwhile, we have Israel's Ben Gvir, who's a monster, a genocidal maniac. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir is visiting the U.S. said Wednesday during a meeting at Mar-a-Lago. He received support from Republican leadership for his plan to bomb food and aid warehouses in Gaza. I repeat, he received support from Republican leadership for his plan to bomb food and aid warehouses in Gaza. This is as disgusting as it gets. I had the honor and privilege to meet with senior officials at the Republican Party at Trump Mar-a-Lago. A statement Ben-Gvir wrote, they expressed support for my very clear position in how to act in Gaza and that the food and aid warehouses should be bombed in order to create military and political pressure to bring our hostages home safely. They don't give a damn about the hostages. That's just window dressing. Meanwhile, Tucker, fired anti-war staffer, speaks out. Tucker's doing a lot of good work right now. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Appearance on Tucker Carlson. Dan Caldwell, as we said, was one of the individuals who was fired from the Trump administration. Pete Hegseth, his former boss, basically calling him a leaker, even though Dan literally worked for Pete Hegseth and was one of the biggest supporters of his becoming the Secretary of Defense. Well, here's what Caldwell had to say, asked point blank, did you ever leak any classified information like what is being alleged from the Secretary, and what is behind your firing? So let's take a listen.
It seems like the fastest way to derail the whole project, the Trump administration and the United States of America, is a war with Iran. And that's why I've just been watching it as carefully as I can, because I feel like, again, if you hated Donald Trump and you hated what the administration is doing on immigration, trade, anti-wokeness, whatever, and you wanted to stop it, the first thing you would do is apply pressure to have the U.S. military engage in a war with Iran. I mean, that's my perspective on it anyway.
I would think that, and also continuing to do what we've been doing previously in Russia, Ukraine.
Oh, for sure. Though I don't know why. Well, I'm going to ask you all about this, but it feels like Witkoff is helping a lot there. God bless.
I've already said he's a godsend.
God bless Steve Witkoff. I couldn't agree more. People knew that you weren't fully on board with the regime change program. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I was very open about it. I was very on the record about it. And most of the time when I was saying that we shouldn't do this, it was actually in support of, the president's stated preferences. Like, the president clearly doesn't want this. In the first term, there were people in his administration that wanted it. He clearly didn't want it. And so it was supporting people who didn't want the war. And so I was essentially...
But Donald Trump has said, and now his actions make perfectly clear, he would strongly prefer a diplomatic solution.
Correct. I don't want to speak for the president, but it's fairly obvious that that's what he wants.
Well, he said it. I mean, He said it again, and he ran on it.
So, look, you can see that Caldwell, is talking about Steve Witkoff. He's talking about war with Iran, about the preference for Trump for a diplomatic solution. But look, we can all do the math. Who's the person who got fired here? Who's the person who's on the... Is it policy? I have no idea, to be honest. Basically, there's so much chaos that anybody can read so much of what we like. Anybody can read any intention into what's happening. But it just seems as if the collapse of the Pentagon front office, whether it is policy motivated or not, is one where Mike Waltz gets to keep his job, the neocons in the NSC get to keep their job. Mm-hmm. Steve Witkoff is basically safe for now. You have no idea if he'll make it or not anytime, in the future. Because, with the Gaza thing, he could be sidelined or he could be sent to Moscow with Putin, tomorrow. We have no idea what the progress of those talks is going to look like. And the forces within the White House and the administration who want more war with Iran are now counter-signaling to protect Pete Hegseth. For example, Tom Cotton and others are some of his biggest defenders right now. So that's not a good sign. Not a good sign to me.
But again, both of these things can be true, that this was fueled by ideological differences, sharp ideological differences, and you have neocons, foreign policy blob coming hard after people like Dan. Mm-hmm. And then that pressure could have forced Hegseth to do something that probably was in response to it and not good. So I feel like both of them, I don't know. I think you're right. Like we genuinely don't know what's happening behind closed doors at the Pentagon right now. It sounds like Dan actually did not do anything wrong, because I think, you wouldn't go out aggressively in media and answer these questions point blank, talk to Tucker if that were the case.
And the answer is, of course, it was because he's opposed to the war, to attacking Iran. Absolutely. Meanwhile, here we have Jeffrey Sachs on Israeli influence.
Worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Shocking enough, completely unacceptable.
Israel lobby in Washington is apparently working in overdrive. The White House announced just about an hour ago the appointment of someone I've never heard of. Her name is Merav Serin to head the Iran-Israel desk on the National Security Council. Now, you might say, well, who is she? She's former official of the IDF. To purport to advise the President of the United States on Iran and Israel relations. What kind of advice does he think he's going to get from her?
It's not even remotely subtle how the Israel lobby works. Why not just put Israelis into the National Security Council? She is Israeli-born. She worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense, no less. She apparently is an Israeli citizen who has worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Shocking enough, completely unacceptable.
Israel lobby in Washington is apparently...
Yep. We know about it. Kash Patel released top secret documents that shook Adam Schiff to the core. Well, that's certainly deserved. What do we got here? In accordance with Trump's executive order declassifying the Russian collusion hoax documents, FBI Director Patel turned 700 pages of material over to Congress. They include bombshells showing the media used fake news and falsehoods to win Pulitzer Prizes for Russian hoax coverage. One story that won a Pulitzer, which Americans now know as false, was a May 22nd, 2017 Washington Post. President Trump asked Intel chiefs to push back against FBI collusion probe after Comey revealed its existence. The thrust was that Trump had pressured the NSA director and director of intelligence to lie, claim there was no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. The story quoted an anonymous deep state official as stating Trump pressured Rogers to lie, and it turns out that this appears to have been Adam Schiff. Very good. Meanwhile, Senator Ron Johnson leaks WCT Building 7 to 9/11 cover-up, demands a new investigation. This is heroic. This is appropriate. He's got it right. Senator Ron Johnson is urging Congress to reopen investigation to the events of September 11, focusing in particular on the unexplained collapse of World Trade Center Building 7, which was never hit by an aircraft and remains, in his view, deeply suspect. Then Rather, at the time, said this was a classic controlled demolition. It was just like we see of the resorts and hotels in Las Vegas, and he had it right. Meanwhile, it's reviving interest in some very old videos like...
This is an orange. If you were told it was something else, you wouldn't believe it, would you? This is called visual identification based on experience. This building is about to be destroyed in what is called a controlled demolition. Buildings do not do this spontaneously. Here is another example of a controlled demolition. The initial charges are spaced about 1 second apart. And you can see that each section begins falling separately. Successful demolitions require that all structural support columns collapse at virtually the same time. If they don't, or if something else goes wrong, the result will look something like this. This is World Trade Center 7 just before it collapsed on September the 11th, 2001. It had not been hit by an aircraft. It had been damaged by falling debris and fire. But by 5:20 p.m., most of the fires had been extinguished. Although the building was 47 stories high, it doesn't fall sideways, nor collapse unevenly. For this to have happened, all of the building's vertical supports must have given way at almost exactly the same time. Yet the Federal Emergency Management Agency reported that the collapse was due primarily to fire. But what does it look like to you? As at July 2007, there is no final report on the collapse of World Trade Center 7. But the National Institute of Standards and Technology still rules out a controlled demolition. So the question is, do you believe what you can see with your own eyes, or do you believe what you are told?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Ron Johnson's a good man. Any way I can assist him, I will do it. Meanwhile, Harvard and more than 150 universities fight back against Trump. This is good. I'm thrilled. The Trump admin said Tuesday it would respond to Harvard's lawsuit in court after the Ivy League college had filed a lawsuit Monday challenging a $2.2 billion federal funding freeze. Harvard's lawsuit marks an escalation in Harvard's fight to maintain academic autonomy in the face of Trump administration demands. In a letter to the Harvard community, the university president Alan M. Garber said the admin's illegal demands would impose unprecedented and improper control over the university. Garber also said the threats would have stark real-life consequences for patients, students, faculty, staff, researchers, and the standing of American higher education in the world. He is 100% correct. I stand with Harvard. Meanwhile, we had a bizarre ruling from the Supreme Court shutting down the executive branch in a sweeping ruling without a hearing barring all enemy alien deportations, guaranteeing open borders forever. This is stunning. In the dead of the night, Supreme Court on April 19th entered a sweeping order barring all further deportation by Trump and the federal government under the 1798 Alien Enemy Act. The government is directed not to remove any member of the putative class of detainees from the United States until further order of this court. The apparent 7-2 ruling, Alito and Thomas dissenting, blocked Trump from acting on his March 15 proclamation that Venezuela and its proxies, including the criminal drug cartel Tren de Aragua, are perpetrating, attempting, and threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the territory of the United States, where he has the power to declare there is such an invasion under 50 U.S. Code Section 21, inducted by Congress in 1798. Trump's right. The Supreme Court is wrong. And it do this in procedural violation of its own standards and strictures. This is outrageous. Meanwhile, Neil Gorsuch betrayed Donald Trump with one shocking move that has conservatives furious. Takeaways. Neil Gorsuch angered conservative by siding with liberal justice in a crucial immigration case, Monsalvo Valenzuela versus Bondi, involving extending deadlines for voluntary departure due to weekends and holidays, a decision undermining strict immigration enforcement. The ruling raises concern about Gorsuch's commitment to Trump's immigration agenda, especially with the court's upcoming hearings on birthright citizenship and other key immigration issues. Conservative justices, including Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, dissented from Gorsuch's decision, highlighting growing doubts about whether Trump-appointed justices will support the president's border security policies. And as you can see, they are not. This is utterly shocking. Meanwhile, sudden stop. A Trump brand crisis hits the U.S. economy. This is by Paul Krugman. He is a left-wing economist, but the charts he shows can't be argued with. I mean, they're purely statistical as long as the data is accurate. Bloomberg posted an article, markets are discovering the real Trump trade is sell America. That's about right. Look at the value of the dollar on international markets, shown at the top of the post. For a while, after the election, investors loved Trump, not wisely, but too well. But in the face of one idiotic policy move after another, they're gradually falling out of love and now seem to be capitulating. I think they still haven't faced up to how bad it is, but they're figuring it out. I think this is a serious analysis. Meanwhile, Trump's USDA just made a major decision about food stamps that left liberals silent. What have they done? They're saying food stamps have to be used for food. The Department of Agriculture is fast-tracking approvals for states requesting to remove unhealthy items like soda and candy. It's a nutrition assistant program. Yes.
Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for?
Meanwhile, we have 5 final stories. Southern California mayor's twisted plan to wipe out homeless people sparks widespread condemnation. Crazy things are going in the U.S. A Southern California mayor sparked mass condemnation after revealing he'd give homeless residents all the fentanyl they want in an effort to wipe them out. R.X. Parras, the mayor of Lancaster, made the remarks in front of stunned residents and councilmen at a city council meeting earlier in the year, but footage of his speech has just emerged. In order to get rid of them by killing them. Meanwhile, ChatGPT is obsessed with God and knows who created the universe. That's a fun one. Check it out. Meanwhile, we have the first photos of Pope Francis' dead body, raising many questions. What do we have here? Photos of Pope go public. Notice the bruise on Pope Francis' face. According to medical efforts, he died of a cerebral stroke. Experts say the most likely cause is ante-mortem trauma, such as a fall. There are, however, no official Vatican reports that mention the Pope having taken a fall. So what do we got here? The bruises are substantial. Meanwhile, here are the leading candidates to replace Pope Francis. Check it out. There are, after Pope Francis' death, body lies in state, 9 days of mourning, funeral at St. Peter's, papal ring destroyed, conclave in the Sistine Chapel, white smoke, means a new pope has been elected. So here are the candidates, actually, 3 by 4. There are 12. I'll leave it to you to follow up on that. But obviously it's going to be a big deal who's going to be the new pope. So we'll look forward to it happening. And I look forward to speaking with you. Just really amazing. I repeat, World Economic Forum files seized. Military confirms evidence, massive leak exposed decades of theft, staffer abuse, global control experiments, and a blackmail ring run by Klaus Schwab himself. I don't think we can get much better news than that. And of course, we had an explanation that he's being dissed on the internet. Pretty fascinating.
Starting to come out with information that is